If you're smart, you probably shouldn't be here. Yet, here you are. And that tells me one thing. You're tired of trading blind. You're tired of feeling like the market is 5 steps ahead of you. So let me make you a promise. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn why Ray Dalio's mindset didn't just build a hedge fund, it built emotional armor. Before we dive in, answer this for yourself. And if you're brave enough, comment it below. When was the last time you blew a trade simply because you ignored your own rules? Think about it. Really think. Because that right there, that's where this journey starts. Most traders chase strategy. Dalio chased clarity. He wanted to understand why traders make the same emotional mistakes over and over, even when they know better. And if you're listening to this, you've probably felt that cycle too. Fear, hesitation, revenge trades, overconfidence, the same emotional loops running your decisions. Dalio figured out early that trading isn't hard because the markets are complicated. It's hard because our minds are undisciplined. He wasn't born fearless. He wasn't born with some rare genius. What he did have was curiosity. Almost childlike curiosity about why he reacted the way he did. Picture young Dalio in the 1960s, a kid trading golf caddying money, pulling stock quotes out of newspapers, not chasing millions, not chasing fame, just fascinated with the game. That fascination turned into something bigger. He started noticing something that most traders still miss, that markets are just reflections of human behavior. Fear, greed, confidence, panic, denial, printed on charts day after day. Dalio realized that if he could understand the psychology behind the moves, he could understand the market itself. But here's where the real transformation began. He didn't just study patterns, he studied himself. His impulses, his reactions, his emotional weaknesses. Most traders never do that. They keep trading the market, even though the real battle is internal. Dalio chose to do what very few people ever do. He became brutally honest with his own flaws. He noticed he got attached to his predictions. He noticed he held losing trades longer than he should. He noticed he celebrated too early when things went right and spiraled too quickly when things went wrong. But instead of hiding those flaws the way most traders do, he put them under a microscope. That level of honesty changed everything. He started developing principles, little psychological rules that kept his emotions in check. Rules that said, don't trust your impulses. Test your beliefs. Expect to be wrong. Plan for the downside. Let reality be your teacher. Simple ideas, but powerful when practiced relentlessly. And that is the foundation of this audiobook. Not strategies, not indicators, but the mindset that allows strategies to actually work. So let me ask you something else. If you had to write down your top 5 emotional weaknesses as a trader, could you? And more importantly, would you? Because Dalio did. And that's why he grew. That's why he adapted. That's why he eventually outsmarted fear, chaos, and institutional panic. He turned self-awareness into a weapon. This chapter is your doorway into that same transformation. You're not here to memorize quotes. You're here to build the mental framework that makes discipline feel natural, that makes confidence feel earned, that makes emotional control feel automatic. Think of this chapter as your welcome, your orientation, your first step. By the time you reach the end of this audiobook, you'll understand why your emotions hijack you, how to stop them before they take over, how to build principles like Dalio did, and how to transform your mind into something the market can't easily break. You came here because some part of you knows you can be more disciplined. And that part of you, the part listening right now, is the part that's going to grow. Now that you're here, let me guide you deeper. Because the next chapter is where your transformation begins. It's where you learn how Dalio rewired his thinking to handle chaos, and how he discovered that clarity doesn't come from predicting the future, but from understanding yourself. Let's step into that journey together.
If you've ever been so confident in a market call that you could almost feel the victory already, only to watch the market slap you right across the face, then you're about to understand Ray Dalio on a level most traders never do. Let me start with a promise. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to uncover one of the biggest emotional traps that ruins traders: the need to be right. And once you see it, you won't unsee it. So answer this honestly, and drop it in the comments if you're bold enough. When was the last trade you took just to prove you knew the market? Because Dalio lived that mistake, and it changed his entire life. Back in 1982, Dalio was on top of the world, at least in his own mind. He was young, hungry, loud, and absolutely convinced that a full-blown economic collapse was coming. He wrote about it. He went on TV saying it. He double-downed, triple-downed, stood by his prediction like it was divine truth. And then, Wall Street did what Wall Street always does. It made a fool out of certainty. The markets didn't collapse. They exploded upward. A massive bull run that nobody, especially Dalio, saw coming. Imagine the embarrassment. Imagine the punch to the ego. Imagine the clients who walked away, the partners who lost trust, the family members who wondered if he'd ruined his entire future chasing some dramatic forecast. His firm Bridgewater almost died right there. He had to borrow money from his parents just to stay afloat. But here's the twist. What destroyed most traders became the fuel for his evolution. That emotional shock, that humiliation, broke something inside him that desperately needed to break. Not his confidence, not his intelligence, but his ego. He realized he wasn't humbled by the markets, he was exposed by them. Dalio said later in life, "It was the most painful mistake I ever made, and the best thing that ever happened to me." Because pain has a funny way of revealing truth, and the truth Dalio saw was simple. He didn't understand enough. He wasn't as objective as he thought he was. He was seeing the market through the lens of his predictions, instead of seeing reality for what it was. And that's where everything changed. He started treating his beliefs like hypotheses, not identities. He stopped trying to look smart and started trying to be accurate. And he realized something every trader needs tattooed into their mind. The market doesn't care how confident you feel. It doesn't care about your certainty. It doesn't care about your analysis if it's built on emotion. It doesn't even care about your experience if your ego is louder than your logic. Dalio's collapse was the wake-up call that forced him to build discipline out of necessity. He started studying mistakes as if they were data points, not personal failures. He analyzed every emotional misstep. He tracked every cognitive blind spot. He developed systems that removed his feelings from the equation. Pain became his teacher. Humility became his strategy. Objectivity became his weapon. And you have to ask yourself, would you be willing to be wrong publicly if it meant you'd become a better trader privately? Most people wouldn't. Most traders cling to predictions like life rafts. They protect their ego more than their capital. Dalio chose the opposite path. And that path turned Bridgewater into the largest hedge fund in the world. So if you take one thing from this chapter, Let it be this. Humility isn't weakness, it's clarity. It's emotional freedom. It's the first step to real mastery. Dalio wasn't destroyed by being wrong. He was rebuilt by acknowledging it. And that is the foundation for what comes next. Because once he learned humility, he discovered something far more powerful, the art of radical open-mindedness. A mindset that allowed him to see what others refused to see. A mental framework that invites truth even when it hurts. A system designed to make ego irrelevant and accuracy inevitable. If you're ready for that level of psychological transformation, then keep listening. Let's step into the next chapter and into the mind of someone who learned to detach from ego, challenge his own beliefs, and see the markets through a lens 99% of traders will never experience.
In the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn one of the most underrated skills in trading, the skill that separates the ones who grow from the ones who keep blowing up accounts. You're about to learn how Ray Dalio trained himself to see what everyone else was blind to, and how you can do the same. Before we go any further, let me ask you something. Comment below. When was the last time you made a trade because you just had to be right? Be honest. Nobody's judging you here. Because being right, that's the trap. And Ray Dalio? He learned early that needing to be right was the fastest way to get blindsided by the truth. So in these next few minutes, I'm going to show you how he broke out of ego-driven thinking, how he built radical open-mindedness, and how you can use the same mindset to escape your emotional blind spots before they wreck your decision-making. Let's start with a scene. It's the late 1970s. Bridgewater is still small. Dalio is confident, too confident. And he makes a bold prediction. The U.S. is heading toward a depression. He goes on TV, interviews, conferences, pounding the table, explaining why he's certain he's right. And then he was wrong. Completely wrong. Economy booms, markets rip higher. And Dalio? He's sitting there realizing he just risked his entire reputation on an opinion that felt right, but wasn't. That moment, he says, was one of the most painful but most important experiences of his life because it forced him to understand something most traders never realize. Your brain isn't built to see the truth. It's built to protect your ego. When your ego is in the driver's seat, you ignore the evidence that contradicts you, and you cling to anything that supports what you want to believe. Every losing trader knows that feeling. You see a candle forming against you, but you justify it. You see volume drying up, but you convince yourself you're fine. You're not analyzing anymore, you're protecting your identity as a person who's right. Dalio realized he needed a psychological reset, a new way of thinking that would make him curious instead of defensive, detached instead of emotional, principles-driven instead of ego-driven. He called it radical open-mindedness. Imagine this. Every opinion you have, every prediction, every belief, you hold it lightly, not tightly. You treat your ideas as hypotheses, not extensions of your identity. You say, here's what I think, but I could be wrong. You genuinely invite people to show you where you're blind. Most traders don't do that. They run from opposing views. But Dalio, he actively chased them. When someone disagreed with him, he didn't feel attacked, he felt excited, like, great, another angle, another perspective, another piece of the puzzle. Think about how rare that mindset is. How many traders do you know who truly want someone to point out where they might be wrong? Most people defend their bias like it's their family. Dalio trained himself differently. He asked smart people to destroy his opinions. He built systems to stress test his logic. He created principles to guide his thinking so emotions couldn't hijack his process. Here's the psychological magic behind it. When you detach from ego, your fear dissolves. Fear comes from what? The fear of being wrong, the fear of losing, the fear of looking stupid, the fear of missing out.
Open-mindedness replaces fear with curiosity. Instead of, I hope I'm right, you shift into, I want the truth, whatever it is. That single shift changes everything. Your trading becomes clearer. Your decisions become cleaner. Your thinking becomes sharper. Want to test how open-minded you really are? Here's a question. When was the last time you looked for evidence that contradicted your trade idea? On purpose. If your answer is almost never, then you're trading inside an emotional blind spot, just like Dalio used to. One of the most powerful examples of radical open-mindedness comes from George Soros. He trained himself to love being proven wrong. Why? Because once he found out he was wrong, he could adjust and stop losing money faster. Stanley Druckenmiller said the same thing. I'm wrong a lot. The key is to recognize it quickly. So let me tell you something most traders never want to hear. You don't need to be right to make money. You just need to stop protecting your ego. Dalio built a simple rule for himself. When someone smart disagrees with you, don't fight it, explore it. He used that rule in launching Bridgewater's idea meritocracy, where the best idea wins, not the loudest voice. He created feedback loops, scorecards, risk audits, all built to expose his blind spots before the market did. Now ask yourself, if a billionaire with decades of experience still looks for where he might be wrong, why do traders with zero consistency think they're above that? Open-mindedness isn't weakness. It's discipline. It's protection. It's strategic humility. Here's a line I want you to remember. Your worst losses come from what you refused to see. The ones you ignored, the signs you brushed off because you felt right. Dalio didn't become Dalio because he had perfect predictions. He became Dalio because he built a mind that filters truth from noise. A mind that doesn't panic under stress. A mind that isn't held hostage by fear. And that's where you're heading next. Because if radical open-mindedness shows you the truth, the next step is learning how to stay calm while everyone else loses their minds. In the next chapter, you'll learn how Ray Dalio kept his emotional balance during Black Monday, during 2008, during some of the most terrifying market collapses in history. How he stayed grounded while institutions panicked, and how you can build the same unshakable calmness inside your trading. Let's step into that together.
If you've ever felt your heart race the moment a candle drops too fast, if you've ever watched the market freeze and thought, oh no, it's happening again, then listen closely, because in the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn how Ray Dalio stayed calm when entire institutions were losing their minds. Let me ask you something right out of the gate. When was the last time volatility made you take a trade you didn't plan for? Comment it below. Be honest, you're not the only one who panics. Most traders do. But the difference between losing traders and disciplined traders is simple. One reacts to emotions, the other steps outside them. And nobody proved that more clearly than Dalio. Picture this. It's October 19th, 1987, Black Monday. The Dow drops 22% in a single day. Phones ringing, traders crying, brokerage firms melting. People genuinely believed the financial world was ending. Meanwhile, Dalio wasn't panicking. Not because he predicted it, not because he had some magical indicator, but because he'd trained himself to separate emotion from reality. He once said, if you can't control your emotions, you can't control your decisions. And on Black Monday, that truth separated him from the herd. Dalio wasn't calm because the world was calm. He was calm because he'd practiced it long before chaos hit. He used what he called breathing space. That meant stepping back, mentally, emotionally, sometimes literally, to avoid getting sucked into the noise. Most traders zoom in. Dalio zoomed out. Let me tell you what he did differently. While investors panicked over every tick, Dalio went into observer mode. He didn't fight the fear. He studied it.
He watched how emotion made people blind. He watched how volatility exposed weak thinking. He watched how herd behavior was driven more by adrenaline than by logic. And you need to hear this. You will never survive as a trader until you learn to spot the emotional noise inside yourself. Think of it like this. When a crowd panics, it creates a kind of psychological fog. Charts look scarier. News sounds louder. Your brain imagines every worst-case scenario at the same time. Dalio understood something most traders miss. Volatility isn't dangerous. Your reaction to volatility is dangerous. He once compared trading during a crash to navigating a storm at sea. The waves don't sink the ship. The panic does. Fast forward to 2008, another global meltdown. Banks collapsing, markets crashing, people losing everything. Once again, Dalio was calm. Not because he was emotionless, he's human, but because he knew how not to let emotion decide for him. He used pattern recognition. He studied past crashes. He looked for repeating behaviors. He knew the market wasn't acting crazy. It was acting exactly how fear makes humans behave. And here's something most traders never do. He separated the story from the signal. He didn't get sucked into headlines, drama, or panic-driven narratives. He looked for what was actually happening, not what people were afraid was happening. You've probably felt that difference before. A red candle is one thing. Your mind screaming, "Get out now," is another. Dalio trained himself to step outside the screaming. He didn't suppress emotion. That never works. He acknowledged it, then moved past it. One of the most powerful things he said was this: the biggest risk is the one inside your own head. And he lived by it. Let me ask you directly. How many trades have you ruined just because you couldn't stay patient for 5 minutes? Most traders blow accounts not because of strategy, but because of impatience, fear, impulse. The same emotional loops Dalio worked so hard to neutralize. Here's what Dalio understood. Institutions panic because they're made of people. People panic because they think they're losing control. And traders panic because they forget they have a choice. You always have a choice. You can let your brain's emergency alarm take over, or you can breathe, step back, zoom out, and choose clarity. Dalio knew that the trader who stays calm when everyone else is anxious is the trader who sees what no one else can see. Imagine the last time the market dipped hard. Your stomach dropped. Your hands got sweaty. Your mind started racing. Now imagine if instead of reacting, you could say, "This is noise. This is fear talking. This is not the truth." That's how Dalio played the game. Calm isn't an emotion. Calm is a skill. And the more chaos you face, the stronger that skill becomes if you train it. So here's your takeaway from this chapter. Volatility is not your enemy. Your emotional attachment to volatility is your enemy. If you can learn to stand still while institutions shake, you will see opportunities others are too scared to notice. And Dalio didn't stop there. He didn't rely on willpower alone. He built systems, rules, principles, a full-blown decision-making machine designed to eliminate fear from the process. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Because in the next chapter, you're going to learn how Dalio built the structure that made discipline automatic, and how you can create your own machine that kills fear, kills chaos, and keeps you rational even when the entire market loses its mind. Let's keep going. The next part changes everything.
If you've ever told yourself, "I'll be disciplined next time," and then repeated the same emotional mistakes anyway, then this chapter is going to hit you differently. Because in the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn why discipline never works by willpower alone, and why Ray Dalio built something far stronger, a machine that made emotional trading almost impossible. Let me start with a question that might sting a little. When was the last time you broke your own rules, even though you knew better? Be real with yourself. If you feel brave, drop it in the comments. Because every trader has that moment, that "I knew I shouldn't have done that" moment, and most people never recover from it. But Dalio figured out something most traders never even consider. Your brain is terrible at making decisions in real time, especially when money's moving, especially when fear, greed, or FOMO creep in. So instead of trying to be stronger, he made sure the system was stronger than his emotions. Dalio built Bridgewater like a literal machine. Principles, rules, checklists, feedback loops, decision maps. Not because he liked structure, but because he knew structure was the only way to remove chaos thinking. You see, most traders operate on feeling. Dalio operated on design. He didn't try to be a disciplined person. He created an environment where discipline was the default setting. Think about that for a moment. Most traders argue with the market. Dalio argued with his own blind spots. He documented every mistake, every emotion, every bias, every misread. He turned them into laws, not suggestions, not hopes, laws. Principles that guided every decision, big or small. And here's the part that caught my attention the first time I studied him. He didn't trust himself. He trusted the machine he built. Every time a trade came up, the question wasn't, "Do I feel good about this?" It was, "Does this fit the principles? Does this match the checklist? Does the data confirm it? Does reality agree with it?" If the system said no, he said no. Even if it felt right. Even if it felt like the perfect trade. Because Dalio understood something most traders ignore. The mind loves shortcuts. Shortcuts create disaster. Let me tell you a quick story you probably haven't heard. In the 1990s, Bridgewater had a period where several trades went wrong in a row. The team was rattled. The pressure was real. They felt like they were losing their edge. Any normal fund would have panicked, cut risk, overreacted, fought the market out of frustration. But Dalio did the opposite. He said, "We don't fix decisions by working harder. We fix them by strengthening the machine." They went back to the principles, checked every assumption, improved the checklist, upgraded the framework. And guess what? That refinement became the backbone of the system that later turned Bridgewater into the world's largest hedge fund. Dalio didn't try to fix himself every time something went wrong. He fixed the system, and the system fixed him. Here's the crazy part. This exact approach works for traders at every level. Imagine if you had a machine running your decisions for you. Not an algorithm, not AI, but a machine made of your principles, your lessons, your rules, organized in a way where emotional mistakes simply can't slip through. A checklist that stops revenge trading. A rule that prevents overconfidence. A principle that blocks impulsive entries. A framework that forces reality checks before you hit buy or sell. Wouldn't trading feel 10 times lighter, 10 times calmer, 10 times more in control? That's the power of structure. Dalio used to say, "Write down every rule you learn, or you'll forget it the moment emotion hits." He's right. How many lessons have you already forgotten because you didn't capture them? Let me ask you something that could change your whole trading journey. If you were forced to write the 5 rules that would have saved your last 20 trades, what would they be? Really think about it. Because your machine starts with that. Your principles, your hard-won lessons, your patterns of failure turned into patterns of strength. Dalio built his system piece by piece. You can build yours the same way. And here's the beautiful part. The more rules you create, the less fear you feel. Fear comes from uncertainty. Structure creates certainty.
Certainty creates calm, and calm creates accuracy. Dalio didn't eliminate fear by being fearless. He eliminated fear by designing a process where fear had no power. That's what a machine does. It kills emotion. It kills chaos. It kills impulsive thinking. It forces you to operate from clarity instead of adrenaline. And once you have that machine running, growth becomes automatic. Mistakes become data. Losses become lessons. Fear becomes your signal, not your enemy. Which brings us to the next stage of Dalio's transformation. Because building the machine wasn't the end of the journey. It was only the structure. The real evolution came from something deeper. The formula he called pain plus reflection equals growth. And if you've ever wondered how to turn losses into strength instead of scars, how to use embarrassment as fuel, how to rewire your trader mind faster than anyone around you, then you're going to want to hear the next chapter. Let's step into it.
Chapter 6. Pain plus reflection equals growth. Rewiring the trader mind. Listen closely, because in the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn the formula that separates traders who stay stuck from the ones who evolve faster than the market itself. If you've ever blown a trade and thought, "Why do I keep doing this?" This chapter is your turning point. And before we go deeper, here's your question of the day. Comment below, what trade hurt you the most this year? And what did it teach you? Let's get into it. Every trader loves the idea of growth, but nobody loves the process that actually creates it, pain. And Ray Dalio figured out something most people run away from, that pain is information. Pain is the market talking to you. Pain is your brain showing you the exact place where your weakness lives. And if you slow down long enough to listen, you won't just grow, you'll transform. Dalio didn't become Dalio because he avoided mistakes. He became Dalio because he interrogated every mistake until there was nothing left to hide from. Back in his early years at Bridgewater, he made a call so wrong, so embarrassing, that most traders would have quit. His forecast about the economy was completely off, publicly off. People laughed. Clients doubted. His confidence shattered. He said it was one of the most painful moments of his life. But here's the part nobody talks about. That loss became the seed of Bridgewater's greatest strength, radical reflection. He asked himself one question: how do I make sure this pain never goes to waste? That's when he created the formula. Pain plus reflection equals progress. Simple language. Life-changing impact. Think about your last loss. Not the small ones, the ones that punched you in the gut. The ones where you stared at your screen like, "Man, what is wrong with me?" That moment is gold if you don't run from it. It's your mind handing you raw material to reshape your entire identity as a trader. Here's the truth most traders avoid. You're not losing because of the market. You're losing because your mind is still coded in old patterns. Fear, ego, the need to be right, the hope that the trade will come back. You're not trading price action, you're trading your childhood triggers. Dalio understood that if he didn't rewrite his internal code, he'd repeat the same mistake forever. So he built a reflection loop that every trader should steal. First, write the painful moment down. Second, ask why it happened and be brutally honest. Third, identify the weakness the pain revealed. Fourth, design a rule so you never make the same mistake twice. Fifth, rehearse the new rule until it becomes automatic. You do that 50 times? Congratulations, you just rewired your trader mind. And the craziest thing is that most elite traders use this loop. Paul Tudor Jones once said his biggest mistake was thinking he knew more than the market, and that realization changed his entire discipline.
Stanley Druckenmiller admitted that his worst losses came from ignoring his own rules. Even Jesse Livermore, the legend, warned that the market punishes ego harder than stupidity. All these giants had one thing in common. They turned humiliation into upgraded software. But here's the part that's even more powerful. When you reflect honestly, your fear decreases. Because fear comes from uncertainty. Uncertainty comes from not knowing yourself. The more you understand your patterns, the less the market can scare you. You stop feeling like you're gambling. You start feeling like you're evolving. And this is where you become dangerous. Not to the market, but to your old self. Because once you learn from pain, you stop repeating it. And every lesson you internalize becomes a tool, a shield, a strategy. Let me ask you something personal. How many times have you repeated the same mistake even after promising yourself you wouldn't? Be honest. Once? Twice? 100 times? Comment it below. Don't be shy. You might be surprised how many traders are going through the exact same cycle. Now picture this. It's a year from now. Same market conditions, same volatility, same setups. But you're not the same. Instead of reacting emotionally, you analyze. Instead of panicking, you observe. Instead of forcing trades, you choose them. Why? Because each painful moment today becomes tomorrow's precision. That's the real transformation. Not more indicators, not more signals, not another magic course someone is trying to sell you. Just pain, reflected on, and turned into growth. Dalio didn't fear being wrong. He feared not learning. He said that embarrassment was the tuition he paid for greatness. And if you think about it, that's the tuition every trader pays. The question is whether you learn or just keep paying. Before we shift to the next chapter, remember this. Pain is the market's way of illuminating the part of your mind that's not ready. Reflection is how you prepare it, and growth is what happens when those two collide. But here's the next level, the part Dalio used to build actual predictive power. He didn't just reflect on pain. He collected data from storms. When everyone else was freaking out, he was studying chaos like a scientist. And in the next chapter, you'll learn exactly how he turned crisis into clarity, randomness into patterns, and volatility into strategy. Let's step into Chapter 7 and unlock the secret of how Dalio turned chaos into a system that never stops teaching.
If you've ever stared at a market crash and thought, there's no way to make sense of this, then this chapter is for you. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn how Ray Dalio turned chaos into strategy and why every crisis holds clues most traders completely miss. Before we dive in, here's your question. Comment below, the last time the market scared you, what did you notice and what did you ignore? Be honest, most traders ignore the signals that could actually save them. Dalio's genius wasn't in avoiding risk, it was in observing risk. In the storms of 1987, 2008, and countless other market meltdowns, institutions panicked because they saw randomness. Everyone else saw noise. Dalio saw patterns, and that difference turned fear into profit. Picture it. Phones ringing off the hook, traders yelling, news channels screaming financial apocalypse. The world feels like it's unraveling. Most people panic. Dalio sits back. He's watching, taking notes, cataloging every reaction, every spike, every irrational move. To him, the chaos is data, raw, invaluable, and full of lessons. He treated each crisis like a scientist studies a storm. Every unexpected drop, every surge, every irrational reaction, all recorded, all analyzed, all converted into principles for next time. Here's the first insight. Observation is power. Most traders react. Dalio observes. Most people fear uncertainty. Dalio captures it. And what others call random becomes predictable once you study it enough. Let me give you a real example. During the 2008 financial crisis, hedge funds were collapsing left and right. Clients were screaming, liquidity was disappearing, banks were failing, chaos everywhere. Most traders froze. Dalio analyzed. He mapped patterns in credit spreads. He tracked reactions to news events. He watched correlations change minute by minute. He didn't know exactly what would happen next, but he knew the likely outcomes because he had a framework, a map drawn from observation and reflection. This is where principles come in. Dalio didn't rely on gut instinct alone. He wrote rules for every situation. Rules born from data, tested through experience, and refined after every mistake. That's why he could act decisively when everyone else was paralyzed by fear. Ask yourself, how many trades have you made without a system, relying purely on instinct? Drop it in the comments. If you're honest, you'll see that most mistakes come from improvisation under stress, not a bad market. Dalio built a mental library of these lessons. Every crisis added new entries. Every failure, every panic, every unpredictable move became a template for future decisions. It's like he turned history into a cheat sheet for the future. Here's the second insight. Recording your observations creates authority over uncertainty. When you document the market, your reactions, and the results, chaos no longer scares you. It teaches you. It shapes you. It becomes a strategy. Even legendary traders follow this method. George Soros once said that the market always sends signals. The trick is paying attention. Stanley Druckenmiller admitted that he always studies mistakes like a scientist, not a gambler. Dalio took that mindset to the extreme, systematically turning chaos into a predictable machine. Now imagine this for your own trading. Every losing trade becomes a lesson. Every unexpected move is recorded. Every emotional reaction is mapped. You begin to see the patterns that most traders miss, and slowly, unpredictability stops feeling like a threat. It becomes an opportunity. Dalio's ultimate goal wasn't to be right all the time. It was to know the rules of the game better than anyone else. And when the rules are clear, decisions become simple, even under extreme pressure. Here's your challenge. Start documenting. Not just trades, not just results, your thoughts, your feelings, your decisions under stress. Look for recurring patterns. Ask yourself why you acted the way you did. Turn that reflection into rules. Turn those rules into principles. That's the essence of turning chaos into strategy. And this is why Dalio thrived when others fell apart. He wasn't smarter than everyone else. He wasn't fearless. He was prepared. He had a mental framework that allowed him to extract clarity from panic, to find signal in noise, and to make decisions that others couldn't see clearly enough to execute. The beauty of this approach is that it works for anyone willing to do the work. You don't need billions. You don't need a team of analysts. You need curiosity, discipline, and the courage to observe without judgment. And here's what's coming next. Because understanding patterns in chaos is only part of the equation. The real power comes when you embrace uncertainty itself, when you detach from the illusion of control and learn to thrive even when the market refuses to cooperate. In the next chapter, you'll discover how Ray Dalio mastered uncertainty, turned it into calm strategy, and stayed precise when everyone else lost their head. Let's step into that mindset together.
If you've ever felt like the market is running on chaos while you're clinging to control, this chapter is for you. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn how Ray Dalio embraced uncertainty, not as a threat, but as the secret weapon that gives him clarity and calm when everyone else is panicking. Before we get started, here's a question for you.
Comment below. The last time you tried to control a trade and it blew up, what did that teach you? Be honest. Most traders avoid that answer, but it's exactly where growth begins. Dalio's brilliance isn't just in predicting markets, it's in understanding that most of life and most of trading is unpredictable, and that trying to control everything is a fast track to stress, fear, and mistakes. Imagine sitting in front of your screen, numbers jumping, news flashing, and every trader around you is losing their head. Your instinct says, I need to control this. I need certainty. Dalio trained himself to resist that instinct. He realized that the illusion of control is more dangerous than the market itself. The first step to mastering uncertainty is simple but counterintuitive. Accept it. Accept that you cannot predict everything. Accept that the market will always throw curveballs. Accept that chaos is not an enemy, it's information. Once you accept uncertainty, you stop fighting reality and start observing it. Dalio calls this mental detachment. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you remove emotion from the decision process so that clarity can take the lead. Here's an example. During 2008, while banks collapsed and traders were screaming, Dalio didn't freeze or panic. He didn't try to impose control on the uncontrollable. Instead, he treated the volatility like data. He asked, what's happening here, really? And then he asked, what can I do that aligns with principles rather than panic? The answers were always calmer, more precise, and far more effective than the gut reactions of everyone else. And this is where most traders go wrong. They try to force certainty. They try to will profits. They fight randomness. Dalio's approach: observe, analyze, and let the market tell the story. Control what you can control: your principles, your response, your process. Let the rest play out. Now here's a mental tool Dalio uses, one every trader should steal. Break every scenario into possibilities instead of certainties. Ask yourself, what could happen, not what will happen. This subtle shift turns fear into curiosity, stress into strategy. And it works in daily trading too. Instead of getting triggered by news, by a sudden drop, by a volatile candle, you see patterns, probabilities, and signals, not threats. Uncertainty becomes your guide instead of your enemy. Here's a real-world twist. Traders like Paul Tudor Jones and Stanley Druckenmiller also emphasize this principle. Jones said the key isn't predicting the market, it's surviving it and exploiting it when others miscalculate. Druckenmiller repeatedly stressed detachment, observing patterns without ego, and staying strategic under pressure. Dalio took that idea further, making detachment a full mental discipline. So here's your takeaway. Uncertainty isn't chaos. It's raw data waiting for interpretation. Your job isn't to control it. Your job is to prepare your mind to respond calmly, strategically, and precisely. The calmer you are, the clearer the signals become. The less attached you are to being right, the more opportunities you can seize. Let me ask you one last question before we move forward. How often do you let uncertainty trigger emotion before you even look for the signal? Most traders do it every single day. Dalio trained himself to do the opposite. He trained to see uncertainty as a lens, not a wall, as opportunity, not threat. And that's exactly what the next chapter builds on. Once you've embraced uncertainty, the next step is discipline, routines, habits, and emotional stability that make staying calm automatic. Dalio didn't rely on willpower alone. He relied on a blueprint that ensured his mind stayed steady no matter what the market chaos. In the next chapter, you'll learn how to design your own discipline system so your emotions stay anchored and your strategy stays sharp. Let's step into it.
If you've ever caught yourself saying, I'll be disciplined tomorrow, and then repeating the same mistakes, this chapter is for you. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn how Ray Dalio built a daily blueprint for discipline, a set of routines and habits that stabilized his emotions and made principled decision-making automatic. Before we jump in, here's a question for you. Comment below. The last time you let a momentary emotion ruin a trade, what could you have done differently?
Be honest, that awareness is the first step to change. Dalio didn't rely on luck or raw willpower. He built structures, systems, routines that made emotional chaos nearly impossible. Every day, he followed a framework that turned reflection, analysis, and decision-making into muscle memory. Let's start with structured thinking. Dalio approached every trading day with clarity. He outlined goals, reviewed principles, and planned for contingencies before the market even opened. Think of it as mental rehearsal. He knew that when the storm hit, he wanted his brain operating on structure, not panic. That's how he avoided emotional overreactions and impulsive trades. Next is unbiased reflection. Every day, Dalio reviewed his decisions without ego. He asked, what did I do well? What did I screw up? And most importantly, why? This daily reflection wasn't just journaling, it was a mental tuning session, aligning his decisions with his principles rather than with fear or pride. Imagine starting your day knowing that every action will be measured against your best thinking. That's emotional stability at its core. Then comes disciplined risk management. Dalio didn't just set stop losses and risk limits, he internalized them. He designed rules that he couldn't bend in the heat of the moment. Most traders fail not because the market is unfair, but because they let hope or fear override their risk rules. Dalio eliminated that possibility. He made discipline automatic. Finally, clear written processes. Dalio wrote everything down: checklists, principles, rules, all externalized so his mind could focus on observation, not recall. This meant he never had to rely solely on willpower under pressure. Everything he needed was already codified. Decisions became reactions to reality, not reactions to fear or emotion. Now, let's bring this closer to your trading. Imagine creating your own blueprint, a daily routine that covers pre-market planning, reflection, risk management, and decision checklists. A routine so strong that emotion can't hijack it. A routine that transforms mistakes into lessons in real time. That's the power of the discipline blueprint. Dalio didn't invent this concept in isolation. Other great traders did similar things. Paul Tudor Jones talks about daily journaling and reviewing trades without ego. Stanley Druckenmiller emphasizes process over reaction. What Dalio did differently was integrate it into a full, unbreakable system that made calm, rational trading the default state. Here's your takeaway. Discipline isn't a magic trait you're born with. It's a series of routines, habits, and processes you design and practice. The more consistent you are, the less your emotions get a say. The calmer your mind, the sharper your decisions. The more automatic your rules, the more principled your trading becomes. Let me ask you this. How many times have you made the same emotional mistake simply because you didn't have a process to stop it? Think about it, because the next step is where transformation truly takes off. In the next chapter, you're going to pull it all together. You'll learn how to become the trader who thrives in chaos, the one who turns fear into clarity, chaos into strategy, and emotional trading into principled mastery. You'll get a cinematic, rising tone message that reminds you you are closer to mastery than you think. So hold on to that thought. Your blueprint for discipline is the bridge to your new edge, and the next chapter will show you exactly how to cross it.
If you've been following along and actually listened, then in the next 10 minutes, you're going to understand how to become the trader who thrives in chaos. Not just survives, thrives. And before we dive in, here's a question to kick things off. Comment below, when was the last trade you made because you had to be right? And what did it cost you? Be honest. That awareness is the spark for your transformation. By now, you've traveled with me through fear, through mistakes, through reflection,
and through building a system that turns emotional chaos into structured clarity. Think about that. From fear to clarity. From chaos to strategy. From emotional trading to principled mastery. This isn't just theory. This is the playbook of the traders who dominate when the market is at its wildest. Ray Dalio didn't get there by luck. He got there by studying pain, embracing uncertainty, building systems, and practicing discipline so relentlessly that calm became automatic. Let's bring it closer to home. Picture your next trading day. You're sitting in front of your screen, the market's moving fast, the news is screaming, volatility is high, and every trader around you is panicking. Your old self would be reacting. Your new self observes. Your new self applies the principles you've learned. Your new self thrives because preparation, discipline, and reflection have rewired your responses. Here's the secret Dalio and other great traders live by. Chaos doesn't create stress. Your reaction to it does. The difference between losing control and dominating the market is not intelligence or luck. It's mindset. It's principle-based preparation. It's turning what used to trigger fear into signals for growth and opportunity. And here's the part I want you to take action on. Keep growing. Apply these principles in every trading session. Document your mistakes. Reflect honestly. Build your routines. Follow your blueprint. These aren't optional. They are non-negotiable if you want to trade like the pros. Another thing, if you found value in this journey, subscribe to the Psych Rich channel. Keep feeding your mind with insights that reinforce discipline, calm, and strategy. Because self-development is a continuous loop. The more you practice, the sharper your edge becomes. Now, let's make it real. Every trade you make is an opportunity to reinforce mastery. Every mistake is raw material for improvement. Every chaotic moment is a chance to test your principles and strengthen your blueprint. You are not just reacting to the market. You are evolving into the trader who operates above the noise, above the panic, above fear. Think about the journey we just went through together. The early mistakes that taught humility, the reflection that rewired your mind, the systems that killed fear, the strategies that turned uncertainty into opportunity. This is your new edge. It's not some secret formula. It's the combination of mindset, discipline, and action. And here's the cinematic truth you need to feel in your bones. You are closer to mastery than you think. Every lesson you've internalized, every routine you've practiced, every principle you've applied, it's cumulative. It's building a version of you that thrives when others freeze, that profits when others panic, that stays calm when everyone else loses their mind. So take it with you. Step into your next trade with intention. Observe, reflect, follow your blueprint. Let chaos be your teacher, not your enemy. And remember, this is only the beginning. The moment you start applying these principles consistently, you step into a new league of trading, one where fear no longer drives decisions and clarity rules your moves. You've got the tools. You've got the mindset. Now go trade, grow, and dominate with purpose. You are closer to mastery than you think.